Let's scroll ourselves on down to where we left off with the action. Back, Kedman. I enjoyed your stream today. I'm scared of moose though. Those animals are we are deceived into thinking they're cuddly when they're actually very dangerous. All right. So I want to drop back a little bit. I don't want to go all the way to the beginning of the previous chapter, but maybe where the action changed over a little bit. I already brought my emoticon for the day. There you go. Money well spent. There you go. Well, not even money. Channel points well spent. It's cheaper than Bitcoin even. Or all types of cryptocurrency. Or Catcoin, as Mr. Frank developed. Alright, and that was before that Dogecoin even existed. He created Catcoin for a story. Alright, so we're starting right around here. He, talking about Waldo, our one and only character at the moment, he picked up the pace a little more and felt that the day's exertion, that needs to be a possessive, catching up with him. Chains, question mark. Ooh, creating suspense. What does he mean by chains? What's he seeing? Let's find out. Alright. May the force be with you, Jay. Thank you. I can use all the help I can get. The ones coming out of the open shops and from alcoves between them appeared to be dragging chains. Waldo looked for shackles but saw none. He scanned them to see if the chains wrapped their bodies. I was going to put in some way, but that's unnecessary. My face is showing up everywhere, just like I always dreamed. But none of them appeared to have the links looped around them at all. They just seemed to be dragging chains behind them. Waldo didn't like that either, but he lacked time or energy to think about it much. The wall of deadly monsters behind pressed ever onward, so he needed to leave this wealthy shopping district with all its undead, let's say, customers far behind. All right, already one word closer to my goal today. Frank sends a fish head. I like those better than his star system for sure. He wished he could wash too. He's probably very dirty at this point, all covered in zombie goop. He wished he knew this part of the city better, so he'd have some idea how to get out of here, and then completely out of the city after that. The chains went through their bodies. Let's say, as he got closer, and they reached the ends of their chains. He saw the chains went through their bodies. All right. Across each of their chests, a welded bar on the ends of the chain held the metal links to them where the chains had been fed through the zombies' torsos on purpose. Okay, Waldo was about to ask out loud who would do such a thing. Many people were crazy enough, especially these days, but who would take the risk and bother with it? Who would have the resources and also be willing to waste them? Before he spoke, he thought of the Dyer truck and figured he had his answers. Let's say at least all the answers he might ever get. Those two and maybe others, let's say those two in the truck. Do you think Waldo is a bar soap or body wash kind of guy? All right, let's see. Let's think this through. Let's be transparent with this and give it an honest think. Okay, is Waldo a bar soap guy, which I guess is just ordinary, or is he a wash kind of guy, like say a Frank Adler or an Armand Rosamilia? He's kind of old school, so he remembers cars and things from the 80s, so that's probably where he grew up. So maybe bar soap. I think even if he was maybe he was bar soap for a while and changed over to wash, but now anytime he can find a bar of soap, that's what he uses. I use Squash soap bars. Thank you. All right. I'm not even cool enough to know what that means. I'm not even as sophisticated as Armand Rosamilia. All right. those two in the truck and maybe others with them had been busy in this part of the city. Maybe Waldo needed to be away from this part of the city as fast as he could go, for reasons bigger than just the undead threat. Going as fast as I can, he said to himself. When the chains... Okay. But was it the right direction? Were these chained guard dogs here to keep him, let's say deter him, to deter him from going forward? All right. How are those? I use defense soap. I need all the protection I can get. Waldo, the lone warrior. There you go. And not a bar of soap in sight. Maybe he'll find tons of soap here soon. That would be funny. When the chains pulled out taut, the leashed zombies leaned out on their bars and reached for Waldo. He weaved and dodged around as he eyed the stone columns inside and beside the stores where those long chains were attached. Those guys had been super busy and were obviously stone cold crazy. Those guys, the ones orchestrating this unliving nightmare, had been super busy and were obviously stone cold crazy. All right, Armand squash is great. Nice smells on them. Using the pine tar one right now. Chuck Buddha uses them too, and his son loves the Star Wars ones for them. All right. Now, the question is, are those endorsements? Like when you name all those names, is that the image the company wants to put forth? Also, pine tar sounds like that Armand is making himself sticky so that people can get a better grip on him when they're trying to hit home runs. So that's what I think of when I think of pine tar. All right, and I don't want to know where that's going, and I hope that Mr. Frank doesn't pick up on that thread of thought that I just threw out there. All right. As best he could, he used his right arm to shove those creatures out of his way enough to proceed. He counted on them. He counted on them ignoring the filthy arm the way the others had today. His luck held out on that point for a little while longer. Okay. Does George Brett come storming into the shower every time you lather up with pine tar? Imagine like the way he's flailing out of the dugout. Now that would be a commercial. You made Jay laugh. Frank is hilarious. I don't know if he's the funniest of our friends. That's probably a stretch. Is the feed stuck or is it just me? It may just be you, I hope. I can see it up. If you refresh, it may work. Yeah, that's what it's called. That's what the kids are calling it these days. Okay, behind him, yeah, because I'm still rolling and have a good bit rate. I'm not saying it's just you, Frank. I don't want to say that your computer's not working or anything. But everything I have control over seems to be fine at the moment. Hate for you to miss all this great zombie action. Maybe the greatest zombie story ever told. Maybe. I mean, anything's possible. Okay. Those guys are crazy as best he could. He used his right arm, getting just past the reach radius of the last chained zombies in this strange gauntlet. Waldo pulled up short. What the living hell, he breathed out. Behind him, the mob overtook the first chained zombies. They swept the connected creatures along. First, the chains looped over the rows of bodies, but then the chains got stamped under and pulled down by all those feet. The zombies on the end went for a ride. They lifted into the air, let's say at first, and flew along on the ends of the chains. But then slammed into the ground where they were trampled. Look, let's do something else. Then they were slammed into the ground. They dragged along, tearing away rotted flesh in a slawing road rash. All right, that's sufficiently gross and detailed. Is road rash one word? 2 words, apparently. Then they were trampled over and over again by the endless flood of walking corpses. All right, doesn't even pay to be a zombie in a zombie apocalypse. It's really a bad scene all the way around when you get down to it. A few of the chained zombies tore free of their bonds, but after those welded bars ripped through their bones and flesh, there wasn't much left to hold them up to keep, let's say, them going. Good stuff. Waldo still didn't move at first, but in the back of his mind, he knew he'd have to break free of this shocked state. I'm going to save trance until later. This shocked state, and keep going no matter what horrors lay ahead. But this was beyond anything he had seen before. As the street split, zombies hung chained to walls. A few were suspended upside down, but didn't act as if they noticed, still chomping their jaws, inviting Waldo to keep walking, please. Stakes hammered down into the asphalt at various junctures sported zombies on shorter harnesses and flexible poles. These looked very much like the figures on top of that truck. He knew these were probably the same guys, but the scale was shocking. There had to be far more than 2 of them, and they had all been very busy with this game of setting zombie traps. All right. Waldo had broken the lock on his... had broken the heavy trance over his mind and his feet to get moving again. But then a few more creatures on cords swung back and forth through and over the street in pendulum fashion. As if that weren't enough, if that weren't too much, others dropped down from beams high above. They. I need they there. Nothing worse than a typo that looks like another word. That's how we miss them and end up looking foolish in the published versions. They lifted and fell over and over on the ends of springs that gave shimmering sounds, much how Waldo would imagine giant slinkies. Waldo took a deep breath and accepted the challenge, knowing he was making a terrible mistake. Through all those swinging, springing, and swiveling undead, he pressed forward and cut a path through them. They weren't quick. At least not any faster than any reanimated corpses he had dealt with in the past. The problem was that all these rotten toys were spaced together in a way that made up for their somewhat sluggish reflexes. Having to duck and sidestep one's swinging by on cords or springing down from above. So let me spell springing correctly. Or springing down from above made this perilous stretch of roadway all the worse. Those swinging zombies were fast, even if they had little control over their motion. They didn't even need to bite him, really. If one of those collided with him, he'd be hurt and probably incapacitated. Okay. Probably incapacitated. The others would take up the slack. Either the ones on their restraints or the endless wave of those marching behind him. Waldo knew it could get worse. As he resorted to shoving and punching bodies aside long enough to get through. But it didn't occur to him that the numbers behind him would create such terror once they plowed into this obstacle course with all their mass. All right, finally here. I missed your face, Jay. Well, thank you. I'll make my face bigger for just a moment there. There, you got it. All right, and then we'll get back to work. Tiny face, big story. Always the story first. That's the proportions. This is the golden proportion for stories. The ratio of story to face to create perfection of a brand. Oh, and Tom Duffy's sharing my face again. Channel points well spent. All right. Horde behind him, walking through. Okay. It all started to come apart as Waldo found himself hurdling zombies staked through one ankle to the lanes of the road. Frank and his fish head. All right, I think that may be some of the only reason he comes here is because he loves that fish head so much. All right. Those zombies in their lazy crucifixion twirled striking snakes. All right, those zombies in their lazy crucifixions twirled around those spikes. Where they were placed, they had a disturbing amount of range. It was the action behind him that unraveled the day further. All right, that probably should be the first sentence of the next paragraph, but I'm going to have it on its own as just to stand out a little bit. All right. Metallic crashing and crashing and stress filled the air. Waldo needed to keep his eyes forward and alert. Waldo needed to keep his eyes forward and alert, but it sounded like the world was coming apart at the seams back there. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make these couple sentences into one paragraph, and then the description of what he sees will be the next paragraph. That's what I'll do. All right. What are we doing now? Crash 10. The crowd shifted in multiple directions as they tripped and tangled in the various apparatus behind him. It was apparatus in their path. I know there's a plural to apparatus, but I'm going to look that up. All right. Yay, updated for today, finally. And despite I had to rewrite the start of the third chapter. I saw you writing there. I'd popped in and out. I was watching a couple streams at the same time. All right. I don't know what that was about. My computer was trying to advertise something to me. Now I take a rest. Right, there you go. You always got to celebrate by resting a little bit. The crowd shifted in multiple directions as they tripped and tangled in various apparatus in their path. Okay. One spring extended farther and farther. Extended farther and farther. It gave a deep groan that grew into a strained high pitch as the coils of the stretching spring lost their shape. Okay. Waldo expected the beam above to come crashing down, or for that stressed wire to snap loose and cut him clean in two. Expected the beam to above. Okay, I left out a couple letters. Good grief. I expected the beam above. Almost 3 chapters done. Good job, Kedman. It's excellent work. Waldo expected the beam above to come crashing down, or for the stressed wire to snap and cut him in two. It was the zombie. It was the zombie itself that sprung back on all that potential energy. It snapped into the air in such blurred force, let's say with such blurred force, that a half dozen bodies lifted into the air and flipped multiple times before falling onto the heads of the others. The spring-loaded, okay, I think that needs to be, the spring-loaded zombie twanged even higher, passing its suspension beam and slamming into a high floor where glass shattered. In an explosion of energy. The body finally fell again, on the ruined spring, but it was just a torso, trunk, and one leg. The other limbs and head either came off in the building above, say in the rooms above, or fell back into the crowd too far away for Waldo to track. The cords of the zombie pendulums swept along with the flow of the crowd. Waldo expected I got an extra letter there, sorry. Waldo expected them to launch into orbit like the spring, but one by one the connections broke, I'm doing a lot of either, so I'm going to need to change this. Either from above, where the cord collapsed into the mob, or off the bodies, where they whipped along the ground, taking the legs out from under the dead. Others fell over the ones in front. Change it from either to either. That's good. That's good. Because then it's not a tomato story anymore. It's a tomato story. Brilliant thinking, Tom. Glad you're here. Others fell over the ones in front. But it did not disrupt. I think I got a run-on sentence going here, but I'll check it. But it did not disrupt the forward flow of death. Another broke loose, and the metal clasps whipped by Waldo's head close enough for him to feel the wind of it. It hooked around. Okay, now let's say the wild cord whipped around, raking the wall of chained zombies. Let's say scarring their faces and tearing open their bloated bellies to spill cold, dark guts along the sidewalk. The cord continued to run out its energy in the air. It finished by ripping through the heads of a dozen monsters in the vanguard of the parade. These fell like pins, and the ones behind marched over them as if it were no great loss. All right, good stuff, Jay. Keep writing, keep writing. I will, thank you. Okay. A zombie on a flexible pole. Zombie on a flexible pole took hold of Waldo's shoulder at the same time that another spiked through the ankle on the ground, got him by the calf. Let's see. Okay, same paragraph. Waldo threw an elbow up under the thing's chin and clacked its teeth together. Waldo threw an elbow up under the thing's chin and clacked its teeth together, knocking its head back and away. Waldo was getting the timing of those flexible poles. So he shuffled back to not be there for the rebound. Half a gray tongue landed on his shoulder. Half a gray tongue landed on his shoulder, where the zombie had bitten it off. Okay, I'm going to make that the beginning of the new paragraph. He wanted to sweep that gross bit of meat off of him, but there was the matter of the one trying to bite into his ankle, into his leg. The crowd drew close. Stay closer. Waldo kicked, stomped, and stutter stepped to pull free. He kicked the damn thing hard enough to cave in its face and knock out a few, let's say several, and knock out several discolored teeth in two different directions. He got free and jogged on to try to stay alive. Waldo spotted the edge of a park ahead. As he continued along, the park proved to be shockingly green and well kept. Hard to believe the same guys that set up all this terrible scene also maintained green spaces in the city. It did look zombie free, so he focused on that as he pressed his way forward. it did occur to him that the lovely green ground might include trap doors that dropped him into the arms of zombies. Thought I heard an alarm, sorry. Into the arms of zombies. There might also be deadfalls into sharpened bamboo or spinning saw blades like on the back of that truck. With this street filling up and coming apart, the green and empty park was still his best bet. Maybe that was why the trap would work. You just have to see. These thoughts cut off abruptly as the first gunshots popped off from somewhere around him. They sounded oddly flat as the concussions double popped, first from the weapon and then off the hard, flat surfaces higher up. He considered that all this dead flesh behind him, with their cacophony of growls, might be muting or absorbing. No, let's do this differently. Might be absorbing or covering the gun noise. He had no clear fix on where the shots were, how far, or the intended targets. Okay. Then the automatic fire kicked in. This was louder, and the echoes crisper. But the sound could be coming from anywhere. Alright, let me get down to where that begins. Automatic fire. Portions of the crowd off to his far left went down went down in waves. With such definite force that it looked like a choreographed ballet. These undead dancers were never getting up again. However, as their heads burst open through two wide holes in the skulls, or they tore clean off the necks from the sweeping fire. There were plenty of replacements willing to wade through all those fallen bodies and spilled fluids. There you go. Volp, if you're still here, I use the word fluids again, just like you desired. Okay. There were plenty of replacements willing to wade through all those fallen bodies and spilled fluids. Alright, so let's keep this going. Zombies on Waldo's right. Not far behind him. Zombies on Waldo's right, not far behind him, even though the rattle of gunfire seemed a touch more distant. Convulsed with the impacts. These shots hit lower, missing the heads entirely. That was a real shame, as he watched them come apart around the chest, around the chests and shoulders. This new round of fire spray swept toward him. Waldo's eyes went wide as he dropped to his belly, knowing he had no room or time to be stopping. The gunfire passed over him. Punching through the bodies, leading out to the right, but not taking any of them down for all that damage. One zombie lost its right arm. Lost its right arm at the elbow, while the left hung by a single stretched bit of skin over the ruined shoulder joint. The armless zombie bowed to come the armless zombie bowed to come at Waldo teeth first. Waldo got to his feet and punched that creature off balance to the side. Then he made another stupid choice that he felt might be his only option. Sparks kicked up off the street. Alright. Kicked up off the street from stray shots. And Waldo ran back into the thick of the crowd, jumping over fallen bodies and pushing his way past the standing ones. All right. What font are you using? Might change to the same font I use sometimes. Change my small in the letters, big to big. I use Times New Roman, and I use a 12-point font. So that's what I use. Now at the same time, I have it zoomed into a particular position that's better for my eyes and that I can read it, and positioned the way I want it on the screen at the same time. So that's part of it. The font size itself isn't that significant beyond it just being kind of standard to what a lot of publishers want. But I kind of pulled in a little bit, zoomed in a little bit, so I'm getting one page per screen, and also can see it pretty clearly. All right. Cut back through the crowd. On both sides of him, the march continued. More than a few turned about and fought the other clueless creatures to get to Waldo. Others had no perception of where the living human was, and probably already forgot why they were walking this way in the first place. He still had to dodge the surviving undead who were still staked down and chained up despite all this chaos. The ones spiked down by their ankles got it the worst. Some had their skulls crushed in by too many passing feet, and that was the end of it. Others, well, I got the wrong kind of there. That's embarrassing. The typo that bothers me the most is the homophone typo. So if I use the wrong kind of there or the wrong kind of your, I feel particularly dumb. So I tried to take extra care to fix those. All right, some of their skulls crushed from, let's say instead of by, from too many passing feet, and that was the end of it. Others were kicked and trampled until broken ribs stuck through their flesh and their heads twisted around backward, but still snapping from all that abuse. A couple had their legs torn off at the spike, and they crawled after Waldo, dragging the splintered bones behind their stumps. Alright, fight your way through this crowd, Waldo. Waldo shouldered and shoved body after body out of his path. He thought he was making progress, but it was difficult to tell with all the motion going the other way. It was like an undead undertow. Okay, I'll start spelling some things right. People are very impressed when an author can spell things correctly. It was like an undead undertow, or swimming upstream through all this rot. No sooner did he fight his way into a gap before it closed around him, and he had to fight some more. He used his right arm the most, counting on the covering of gore to protect him. Even without being bitten, all those punches and tackles into the meaty corpses took its toll. He ached all over. His knuckles throbbed, and he grew more tired by the moment. All right, we've done a good job of talking about him fighting his way through this crowd, so let's make some progress here. Gunfire continued. Heads exploded close enough for him to see the bodies pitch backward and fall. Any one of those shots might take him next. He tried to keep going. He wanted bodies to be between him and those shooters as much as he wanted to be out of this mess. The dynamics of falling zombies shifted the mob hard one way and then swiftly the other. Waldo fought hard. Waldo fought to stay on his feet as much as he struggled. Waldo fought to stay on his feet as much as he struggled to keep from being bitten. A wide gap opened as half the crowd shifted one way, where a spray of gunned monsters fell at once, and the rest of the crowd pushed hard the other way for no reason Waldo could see. He saw the opening and ran toward a narrow pass between shops ahead of him and to his left. He he gained good ground and even got a few real strides into a run before he tripped over a chain and skid along the sidewalk through a spill of putrid guts. All right, there we go. Now what happens? Let's find out. Okay, tripped. Let's say, as he excised himself from the puddles of zombie muck, creatures on both sides folded down over him to encase him and to begin to feed. Alright. Probably needs to be the same paragraph. I don't know. We'll see. Alright, lands in a puddle, folds down to encase him. He was all elbows and knees, doing everything he could to force those hungry mouths away from him. Okay, to force their mouths away from him, he twisted around and upward, actually using their rotten clothes for leverage so he could stand. So he could stand up. As the clothing ripped, let's say rags, as the rags ripped and he pulled them toward him, he then went about shoving them away with his gory right hand. A couple times he slipped fingers between their teeth and had to pull his hand back before those jaws locked onto him and doomed him. One time, same paragraph. One time he scratched his nails over his, let's say his fingernails, scratched his fingernails over the dry tongue of one zombie. That reminded Waldo of the half tongue still sitting on his shoulder. He finally brushed that away and ran free of the ones gathered around him. Alright, I'm going to break where he felt the thing's tongue, because that can be its own idea. Alright, continuing on. In a distant way, he still heard those shots. Heard those shots coming from God knew where. A few bodies jolted from time to time, as if hit, but none of them had the decency to fall down. None of them had the decency to fall down. And finally leave Waldo alone. All right. Okay, I got all that. Sorry, I'm trying to see. I've kind of skipped around here, so I'm trying to make sure I get everything out. He pushed a couple more out of his path and reached that narrow pass. As he ducked between the buildings, more impacts peppered the bodies behind him. And speckled his back with the smallest bits of wet zombie shrapnel. Okay. I know shrapnel is usually hard and sharp, but we're going to use the word here anyway. Alright, moving right along. He had gotten into a space with no zombies ahead of him. But enough saw him duck away that they followed in after him. And others just followed those like they always did. All right. got enough for tomorrow too. Okay. All right. Ahead, high chain link fence. I think chain link is one word, but it always makes me divide it. High chain link fence divided the alley at the midpoint ahead of him. But he kept running at it. His first thought was to climb over and keep going. If it came down to a hopeless fight with his back to the fence, at least there would be fewer of them to get to him at a time in this narrow space, in this more narrow space. Okay. Piles of bones. Spotted the walls and sides of this passage. Bones climbed up, say piled up in tendrils up the walls from the tops of the many heaps. This was an odd place to store discarded bones, but this whole territory was the oddest he had found in the city so far. All right, continuing on. All right. Piles of bones spotted the walls and sides of the passage like ivory snowdrifts. Here we go. Okay. He had to kick the broken skulls out of his path. He had to kick. All right, I got a grammar issue there. Oh me, he had to kick the broken skulls out of his path, where they had rolled off the piles on both sides at some point in the past. Piles of bones piles of bones continued on beyond the fence. There were also a couple zombies moving around on the other side. More than a couple, really. But Waldo figured fighting his way through them was better than staying over here with all these. As Waldo hit the fence and started to climb, a few undead on the other side turned to see him. They approached where his fingers stuck through the fence. The rest over there still seemed distracted by something the other way. Good enough, Waldo whispered. As he started to pull himself up. All right. Gunfire roars down. So gunfire roared down this passage from beyond the fence in sharp contrast to the double pops. Behind him that seemed far more distant. All right, slugs rang off the brick. Ahead of him, but he did not see where those went. Other rounds definitely found their mark as bodies deeper through the pass. Deeper through the pass folded at the knees and went down on the bone piles. Okay. Say As more heads burst, a spark popped. One wire loop in the chain link. Between Waldo's hand and his head. He dropped down from his aborted climb and staggered backward. And down. And into a crouch. He didn't know which way to go or what to do to keep from being bitten or shot or both. Alright. Got about 100 more words before I meet my goal, and we're pretty close to a good stopping point, I think. As more, let's say, a few more sparks lit through the chain link, lit through the fencing, and scattered bones off the tops of the many piles. A few zombies on Waldo's side of the fence took damage to their joints or leaked from new holes opened through their bellies. The pass-through bullets from over there didn't fell the ones reaching for Waldo now. Okay, what are you gonna do, Waldo? You got zombies all around you, people are shooting at you, surrounded by bones. What's your options here? Okay, staggered back. Let's say, yeah, Waldo grabbed for anything at all. He came up with a long bone that had a severe looking knob on the end. Without taking time to think about it or to consider the bullets still coming his way, he started to swing. He knocked off the lower jaw one monster. And twisted its head as it blinked above its dumb looking overbite. Others he knocked off their feet. And dented them up pretty badly. In the end, he only opened up the skulls of a couple to put them down permanently. Those couple times felt good. He ducked down as he heard a couple more ricochets off brick and swung low into a zombie's side. Waldo must be both the luckiest and unluckiest person in the entire world. We got a good mix of the best and most terrible luck. He ducked down as he heard a couple more ricochets off brick and swung low into the body of a hefty monster. He heard and felt ribs crack, ribs shatter. But the impact absorbed the blow, and before he could draw back for another swing, the zombies grabbing for him ended up pulling his nice bone club out of his grasp. All right. Okay. Zombies pull his club away. Okay. So I know where I'm picking up tomorrow. And I definitely have enough to do 2,500 words already outlined out. And then I'm getting close to where we need to be wrapping the story. I got a few more key story points that I need to jump into. But I think I got that paced out pretty well. The fact that it's going to be close is probably right, which means I'm getting close to stopping right at that 50,000 word mark. But I am satisfied with that, so I'm at 35,109. 35,109. Help me remember that if I forget it, because numbers are not my favorite. 35,109. Okay. Do I need to break a chapter here? Hold on. 35,109. 17 has gotten a little long. Where was I thinking about breaking it? Looks like I just forgot about breaking chapters. Let me figure that out real quick. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, I'll break the chapter there. It's going to be a long chapter, but I think that's a good break for where I want. Okay, sorry about that. I was looking at my notes. So 35,109. Let's pull up the NaNoWriMo page. And 35,109. I am satisfied with that. We are at day 14. Tomorrow is day 15, which means I have 6 more days of writing before I'll reach 50,000 words. And then one way or the other, I need to finish this story. A 20-year-old Harrison Ford would fit his fault. There you go. Yeah, it's definitely over the top, but that's part of what we were going for. So Ruthless, Rabid, Raging, Ravenous, Rampaging, Remorseless, Repulsive, Revolting, Repugnant zombies. And I should get that 14-day badge here soon because I updated 14 days. I guess that'll pop in soon. All right, so let's take a look at some of my buddies and see how they are doing. Always positive, always encouraging. So anybody that cares to can buddy up with me, and if you'd like me to talk about your progress, I'm willing to. All right, so let's take a look at Oscar Jones. Oscar Jones is at Demons and Disasters. He's at 32,565. He reached that last night, and I remember he tweeted it, or he posted it out. I don't remember what platform it was on. I just read it recently. And so he was 20 words ahead of me when he stopped yesterday, which means he'll probably stay on track today. But he wrote something like 5,000 words yesterday, so he's flying right along. Looks like he's trying for that 20-day pace as well. Hit 50K on words so far this month today. Good job, Armand. And, of course, that's over several projects. Because you can't just do one thing at once, even when you're not writing every book in a series at once. All right, very good job, Oscar. We're very proud of you. All right, jumping back. Let's see who else is making their way along. All right, Tom Duffy updated, so let's take a look at him. Tom Duffy is at 34,068 words, and that is where he's reached so far today. Not sure what else he may be writing today, but that is a good total, way ahead of a 30-day pace, and right there along to a 20 or 21-day pace there. Looks good. Good job, Tom. You were really overachieving. Okay, Armand Rosamilia. Yes, he's updated too. He's hit 50,000 words for the month of all his writing together. But on Man Down, First Coast Thrillers, Book 3, while he was also writing Book 2 and has finally got that beast out of the way, he is at 30,030 words. And again, that's just on this one book when he's been writing multiple things over the last few days. So very impressive, Armand Rosamilia. Nothing stops you, at least not when it comes to NaNoWriMo. Thumbs up from Tom Duffy. No higher praise. All right. Chuck Buddha updated recently. So again, he's at 20,735 words. That's about 1,000 more from last time he updated. So he is cruising right along there. Halfway mark would be tomorrow. So depending on what he wrote today and tomorrow, he could be on track. But the point is he's very close to it, and he's staying very close to it. And that's a good accomplishment and something he should be very proud of. All right. Anyone else? Let's keep scrolling on down here. Again, I don't think he is updated yet. Let's check on him. Has he updated yet? Nope. Again, when I write in the middle of the day, sometimes I'm catching people before they've had a chance to write, and I don't want to call them out for that. All right, that was his total yesterday. Kedman's updated, and I've just gotten to him. All right, and yes, he did. Man, that's impressive. He is at 4,119 words. Now, again, based on when he signed up for NaNoWriMo, he's technically been doing this for 3 days. So his goal pace is 1,000 words a day, and he's essentially above that each and every day so far. So seems to be highly motivated, and I'm excited to see how that plays out. I was watching his stream earlier today and watched some interesting clips, and then he was writing, and of course his novel's in Swedish, and he's writing science fiction, which he mentioned was kind of a harder sell over there. And it's looks like an interesting piece. I'd love to see how that turns out, and especially if he can get it in front of the eyes of readers, because anything you spend that much time on, you want people to be able to read and enjoy. So that should be a lot of fun. I think Kedman might be the last one who updated, so let me scroll down a little further and make sure there's nobody else. So again, I'm going from memory, so other people might have popped on along as we went, but I can check on them tomorrow as well. I want to thank everybody who has popped in and out of here, those of you who came in right at the beginning, those who stuck all the way through, those who came in and out, and especially those of you who have stayed here till the very end or are here at the end. I don't think I would be on this pace. I don't think I'd be creating this novel with the same enthusiasm that I have now without you guys here and encouraging me along and playing along in chat and all of that. I've also enjoyed going to other people's writing streams and seeing what they're doing for NaNoWriMo and then just writing in general. I think it's an interesting community we're starting to build here, and looking forward to seeing what you all create. Always a joy following Indiana Waldo. That's good stuff, man. And hopefully this book will close out with something good. I know how I want it to go. I know how I want it to end, which is always good. And hopefully the first draft will be strong enough that I can go through on the second and third drafts and make something really amazing. So that'd be the goal.